Hello everyone, this is Metroid Nerd number 9001, and it's finally time to release my entry into the Oatsngoats Hacking Contest. I began work on this hack in June, and I finished it up in November, well in time for the deadline, and this is Super Metroid Hotlands. I ended up placing 3rd in the contest overall out of 9 overall entries, and I'd like to say I'm very proud of my work, if I do say so myself. I think it turned out really well. You'll notice a lot of changes right off the bat, including a somewhat custom title screen with some help changing some of the texts and changing some of the graphics. I'll get more into how some of these changes are later. But for now, it's time to begin the hack. I even have a little custom story. I always like making these. The Galactic Federation has hired me to take down a space pirate mining operation on the planet Vulcan. They have found a huge deposit of the powerful material Cordite, which they may use to attack galactic civilization. Vulcan is the name of an enemy from Undertale, so there's a lot of minor and major Undertale references in this, just because it's fun. And Cordite is obviously a reference to Metroid Prime. Didn't really want to bother changing these though. Because that's a lot of graphical work, and I'm not very much of a graphics person. That's why I had other people do it for me. Given my knack for blowing up planets, I was the perfect candidate for this job. The pirates' mining has weakened the core of the planet, giving me the perfect opportunity to infiltrate their facilities and destroy them. Mother Brain isn't actually in this hack, but I thought this, of all the other scenes, would be the most fitting to put here. I think it works fairly well. Planet Vulcan is a Class 13 wasteland, and its lack of intelligent life has given the Federation no qualms about blowing it up. Class 13 wasteland is also a reference to Metroid Prime. I have fun with these. I must now carefully make my descent into the core. Planet Vulcan. I didn't change the graphics from Zebes, but I did change the palette, and I think it fits, because it kind of fits the palette of the surface area that you'll see coming up very soon. There's a lot of custom music in this hack. Not all of it's original, some of it, as you'll start to see here, and if you've been paying attention to my channel. This is an arrangement of Another Medium, which plays in the Hotlands area in Undertale. I had a lot of fun putting these tracks together, and unfortunately, because they're copyrighted pieces, and they can cause issues on YouTube, I wasn't able to have the songs actually play in the stream when Oatsngoats judged the hack. However, I still can have them in the released version, because no one's really gonna bother me about this. I don't think Toby Fox is gonna track me down and say, hey, why did you use this music? Because I'm not making... No, wait, that's actually a lie. I'm not making money off the specific arrangement of this song. I did win some stuff from the contest, though. Because I won 3rd place. It's not officially 3rd place, it's more like I was the crowd favorite. However, I wasn't actually the crowd favorite, because the way the judging for the contest worked was 1st and 2nd place were judged by Oatsngoats, and then 3rd place would be given to whoever received the highest vote from the community. However, the community vote cannot be the same as 1st or 2nd place, so I won 3rd place in the community vote because 1st and 2nd place were the top 2 hacks in the community vote as well. So I de facto got 3rd place. And when Oatsngoats also announced the results, he said that second place was between me and the 2nd place hack that actually won 2nd place. So I also interpret that as I got 3rd place, and he also confirmed that I can say I got 3rd place. I should probably start talking about the actual hack. You saw there was one room that I could actually go into, but that wasn't blocked by missiles. But there's a bunch of grapple stuff, and it kind of fits. You get grapple beam right here. Grapple is actually the first upgrade in this hack. I have fun having some unusual item progressions, because usually you would think it would be like bombs or missiles. I don't think Hyper even had grapple as the first upgrade. Hyper had grapple really early, though. Yeah, I think either Moehr missiles was still the first upgrade in Hyper Metroid. because I don't know the skill level of everyone playing my hack, I have tutorial areas to kind of give you the rundown of how these items work, and it helps to build a nice difficulty curve. If you don't go in expecting everyone to know how everything works, you still build easier areas to use the upgrades that you give them. So that makes it so that you can have a better difficulty curve because you start out easier, and not very many people are going to have trouble with these sections. But if you gave them a lot of trouble really early on in the hack, they would probably get frustrated with you and stop playing. Whereas if later parts of the hack were harder, they would probably put up with it more because they have a better impression of the rest of the hack, and they're like, well, I like this so far, so I think I'm going to put up with the way the rest of this hack is making me play, even if it is difficult. Difficulty curving is really difficult. Go figure. But it's definitely important when you want to get into more advanced levels of game design, which I guess I kind of get into some of that stuff later in this hack, where there's a lot of minor details that guide players with where they're supposed to go, and I'll talk about them when they're applicable. Right now, I'm just kind of exploring. I'm going through the main intended route. These pirates are kind of pointless because you can just walk right past them, but they guard the first missiles, or at least the quote-unquote intended first missiles. There's multiple places where you can get your first missiles, but this is the one I quote-unquote intended you to get them from. And this draws the association between pink and missiles, although if you're playing a Super Metroid hack, I really hope you've played Super Metroid before, so you should theoretically already know this, but it's still good practice to have things that teach you how things work, especially because not everything in this hack is completely vanilla. So being consistent with how I teach about the various upgrades, I guess, gives me good practice. It's like I had to give a little tutorial on how missiles work. So when I give a little tutorial on how X other thing works, then I'm in the good practice of doing so. A lot of missile doors in this area I can now open, but this is the one that is actually important because this is what's guarding the morph ball. There's other stuff going on in some of the other doors, which I'll also show off. Namely the map room, but because I only have 5 missiles right now, I can't really open all of them at once. I have to refill. I did a lot of changes to enemy vulnerabilities too, so I believe in vanilla you can't beat the metal gamers with missiles, nor with grapple beam, but now you can do it with either one of them. So I can use grapple to kind of farm off of these guys, because I can't kill them with power beam, but I can kill them with missiles. But why would you really want to kill them with missiles when you have grapple beam? Because your odds are if you're killing them, you're trying to get missiles, so why spend missiles to get missiles? I give a lot of information with the map of this area, and it tells you a lot about where you can go. I don't do the same in the core area, which, as you can see in the bottom right of the map, that's the second area of this hack, the second major. But you'll see eventually in the hack, I kind of guide you towards where you're supposed to go. I think the main part of it that does it is that on the map, major upgrades are marked with a circle, and you can see that there's a circle behind the boss. However, that's at the bottom of this map. But if you go all the way to the bottom, you'll notice that you can't get down here because you don't have super missiles. So you're like, oh, okay, I can't get down here, where else can I go? So you're like, oh, there's an area on the right hand side of the map that's also a major upgrade, maybe I should go there. And if you went right at the beginning of the game, you would also have seen that that area required morph ball. So you would know to go there because you're like, oh, I have morph ball now, so I should go there. And that would be correct. This area also is blocked off because you don't have bombs. Although you can kind of circumvent that by going through some other areas, but I won't really get into that. There's different ways you can play the hack. It's not the most linear, it's fairly linear, but there are areas where you can kind of break progression and skip upgrades earlier on. And then there's completely optional stuff later too, so I guess it's just structurally, the first area is a lot less linear than the core. Yeah, I'm getting hit by my own enemies. Luckily, they don't really do all that much damage. I shouldn't say luckily because I'm the one who designed it though. I didn't do much custom graphics work at all. One of the few things that I actually did myself was I made those volcanoes. It's a minor detail, but I think it helps. It just kind of reinforces that. I'll point out the custom graphics that other people did too, but that's like the one thing that I myself did, because I am not a very visually talented person. Like, I make like level design and I do music. Like, I did all the arrangements for the music in this hack, but custom graphics, no. I did the palettes though. Palettes aren't as difficult as custom graphics. It just requires patience, really, and it's especially because I'm working with color palettes that already exist and I'm just kind of changing them, it's not as bad. And it's also like how I was able to make these volcanoes by just changing the stuff that already existed. So I can do some visual stuff if I'm just altering something that's already there. But if you're putting me like completely on my own, hey, draw an entire tile set, please don't ask me to do that. There are a lot of custom tile stuff you'll see later on in the hack though. But for now, it's time for one of the only vanilla bosses in this game, Bomb Chorizo. I just kind of kept him in there because I felt like it, and it's like a little bit of a sense of familiarity, never hurt anyone. Plus, it's an easy boss, and it's like, might as well. I always slip up the timing on how to fire the missiles, because Bomb Chorizo has a fairly long invincibility timer, and during all those cutscenes he's also invincible. So I end up wasting a lot of missiles on him. But it's not that big of a deal. As you can see, I only lost a quarter of my health. Bomb Chorizo is not a hard boss whatsoever. This looks like it would be where you would save the animals, and that actually was originally where you were going to save the animals in this hack. Spoilers, there are animals to be saved. However, I changed my mind because I got a much better idea. I'll go over that later. By the way, if you weren't keeping up with the Oatsngoats Hacking Contest, the main thing, the reason that the hack is the way it is because the theme of the contest was uninhabitable planet. So that's why I talk about how this planet is like a class 13 wasteland. It's like there's still life on it, but it's not suitable for human life or human living, which is why it's considered uninhabitable. Now this room, I actually made a video about this room, contains a lot of secrets. The first of which you get by realizing, hey, there's some ledges up here. Maybe I can swing with grapple up to them. And turns out you can. You can infinite bomb jump up here too, but it's easier, honestly, and it's more fun to just grapple swing everywhere. Because grapple's fun, sometimes. If you design the rooms well. And I like to think I designed my grapple rooms fairly well. None of my beta testers ever really complained all that much about it. Speaking of beta testers, actually, I had a lot of help when it came to making this hack from a lot of people in my beta testing server. Not all of them were explicitly beta testers. Some of them helped me with graphics. Some of them helped me with code, and I'm really screwing up this grapple puzzle. But I guess this gives me a good opportunity to... I just want to extend a special thanks to all the people who helped me make this hack. And as part of that, I asked a few of the people who helped me make this hack, who really put in a lot of work, to record some of their own commentary about the hack, talk about what they did to contribute to the hack. So the first of these is from Sickwood, who was one of my beta testers. Take it away.
Hey, this is Tim, aka Sickwood on Discord. I was one of the beta testers for Metroid Nerds Hotlands Oatsngoats Contest hack. Basically, I just helped find errors and bugs, and after each update was released, went back and made sure nothing conflicted or carried over from the previous versions. Also, along with the other testers, I helped make a few recommendations on fixes and ways to improve the flow of the game from a speedrun standpoint. It was a lot of fun being involved in the project. I got to interact with a lot of cool and talented hackers that I had never really met or interacted with before. The final product was easily Metroid Nerd's best hack yet. And you probably won't find a more polished contest hack out there. So yeah, finally, I'd just like to thank Metroid Nerd for letting me be part of the project. It was a lot of fun, and I hope to be involved in the next one. Query.
Thank you, Sickwood. If you haven't, you'll see I've reached kind of an upper little alcove area. Not really alcove. Why do I keep saying that word so much? I guess I like the word alcove, but this upper area I just kind of wanted to show. You swing up here, and the way you know that it's there is if you do a full-length jump from the top of that platform that I jumped from, you can just barely see the top of the grapple point. And if you notice that, then you're like, oh, wait, can I grapple up here? And then you find this huge sprawling area, and if you complete a series of moderately difficult grapple jumps, then you can net yourself another energy tank. I wanted to kind of balance how difficult a lot of the things that you get in the hack are, so some of the harder upgrades, for the most part, are energy tanks. Although, as is generally considered good design in Metroid hacks and in Metroid in general, you usually give 1 or 2 free energy tanks throughout the hack, just to make sure the player has some extra health. But a lot of the harder puzzles are also rewarded with energy tanks, so you have to strike a good balance. Like, the first energy tank you got in this room was very easy to get, and it just required bombs, and it's like, oh, you just have to get it once you get bombs, and you get bombs right there. But then the second one is significantly harder to get, and that's as a reward for completing a fairly challenging grapple segment. Down here, you kind of have a split path, but you can see that it kind of links back to where we already were. And there's nothing, I still can't get through that door, the super missile door, so I'm going to head back this way into this completely new area. I know I've been tooting my own horn a lot, but I really am happy with how this hack turned out, and one of the things I'm most happy with, one of the very specific things I really like, is how the background in this room turned out. It took so long to make this background for this one room, but I'm just so happy that I was able to get it so that all of these background segments would line up with the ceilings and floors of all the different segments of the room. Because they don't scroll at the same speed as the room, as the layers that Samus actually stands on, they don't, it's harder to put them together in the editor that way. So there was a lot of trial and error that I had to go through to be able to get all the background segments to line up, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. There's a few areas you can go in this room, however the one that's actually important is up here, and you'll see why soon enough. It may look like it just leads to a dead end with an item, but it's a little bit more interesting than that. I have some slightly harder pirates. You have to use missiles, or you can also use bombs to defeat them, but it's a fair bit riskier to use bombs. However, if you run out of missiles and you're really in a pinch, then you can use bombs, because you always need to be able to do something. What we have here, instead of an item, is our first mini-boss. I thought having custom mini-bosses, even though they're not like fully custom bosses, would be a pretty good way to spice up the hack and make it feel different. I also have some custom music. Both the graphics for the rock and the music were created by a personal friend of mine, just another paper toad. However, I do not have a commentary segment from him because he didn't really want to do one, so I'll go ahead and talk myself about some of the stuff, some of the processes we went through in getting all this stuff to work, because he's actually never played Super Metroid before, but he was still able to get all of the stuff he made to fit into Super Metroid style. You'll notice in this room, you don't actually need to kill a pirate, you just need to destroy the rocks, and that is so that you can make the connection, oh, it's the rocks that are important. And when you see, oh, breaking the rocks caused the lava to drain, and you can get down here now. So you have to beat the mini-boss because the room itself changes, letting you get to over here, which is where you get super missiles. So a little bit about the graphics. I'd wanted a custom rock graphic because I drew a little drawing of how I wanted the final boss to go really early on in the hack. And I knew there would be like rock things that you defeated. So I approached him and he's like, hey, can you draw some custom graphics? There will be some really tight specifications, but I know you're good with pixel art. And he said, sure. So I had to in order to get him to be able to draw the graphics, he actually, because he uses a Mac, he can't use Tile Layer Pro, which is the tool that most hackers use to edit graphics in ROM hacks. So he drew it. I had to give him the colors, like the hex colors for the Moehr tile set, to be able to, so that he could use them in his rock, because I wanted it to fit with the vanilla Moehr tile set, because that's what you'll see later on in the hack. And I also sent him a picture of what Moehr generally looks like, and it's like, this is kind of what I want it to look like, and I want there to be a crack in the rock. And the way I did the crack, I made it glow, but that's because those are actually the like blue face enemies from Blue Brinstar, and their mouths glow. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna give you also 4 color slots, and these correspond to the different glows. And on the first try, he put together something that like was almost perfect for what I wanted. I made like one tiny change, and it was like rounding a corner or something, but it's like he just gave me these 2 rock graphics because I wanted to. You'll see the second one later on, and they were just spot on for what I needed. And in a way, I've kind of made them like the symbol of the hack, because those rocks are Cordite rocks, which is the MacGuffin, I guess, material that the space pirates are using, and that Samus is trying to stop the space pirates' abuse of. So that's about how the graphics went. Back to the game. Charge Beam is here. There were a few things about the design of those rooms that I do kind of want to talk about. There's not really anything special about the reason that door is locked. It's just because I was lazy. Because the room that I edited from vanilla to get to that room only had 1 door. So I'm like, I don't want to repoint this room's door pointers. So I just made that door lock. Sometimes laziness informs decent decisions. Or it's maybe laziness just kind of informs the way things are. I'd introduced earlier when you get Morphball about the idea of having remote gates. So this room actively further expands on it. And the reason that you know that you have to shoot the ceiling in the room afterwards is because you're like, well, I just went through all of that, why would I have a dead end? So it kind of makes the player think, okay, there's definitely something I need to find here. And that, a lot of interesting stuff like this actually happened when Oatsngoats was streaming the hack for his Twitch channel, that he found a lot of these little things, these little game design tools that you can use to kind of get your players to do what you want. I just kind of wanted to show off the Eris room because I really like it. I mean, Eris rooms just look cool. And so I put an Eris room in Pit of Under Trials, and I have an Eris room in this hack, because once I learned how to make them, I'm like, this is really cool, I should have one of these in all of my hacks. More on the custom mini-boss theme, I can't remember if I asked him about this or he gave me the idea, just another paper toad, but either way, we had the idea for having a new mini-boss theme, so I sent him what the original mini-boss theme from Super Metroid was, and it's like, this is what I'm using for the mini-bosses that use your graphics, and he said, you know, I really don't like the mini-boss theme in this game, so he tried to kind of emulate the same kind of feeling that you get from it, but in something much more melodically and harmonically interesting than the vanilla mini-boss theme. So, as you could hear while I was fighting the mini-boss, and if you've seen my separate video that just has the custom mini-boss theme, I think it fits really well. He did all the composing, but I did the arranging, so basically I just had him send me a MIDI of the note data that he composed with, and then I did all the I did all the arranging into the Super Metroid sound font, because I know how to use all the tools that are necessary, because it's a fairly complicated process. This is another one of those free energy tanks that you just kind of give to the player because it's nice. So back up here, this is the other side of that grapple swing area with all the lava. However, you can actually get here really early in the game. If you are gutsy enough, you don't even need the grapple beam to get across there. I'll show that you can do a lava dive even without any energy tanks because I reduced how much damage lava does. And you can get over here, and behind this door is a missile tank. So you can skip grapple and still have a really easy access to a missile tank. Or if you still want to get grapple, you can get this missile tank and just skip the one in the top left corner of the map where you have to go around the ninja pirates and do that big room. So it's generally faster, and if I really wanted to, I could have made like that the door that I went through to get the missiles locked by missiles. But really, why hamper the player like this? So this is a grapple swing room, where it's like, oh, I need grapple. But actually, if you're gutsy enough, you can jump from this hill under the lava, I guess a mound, I don't know, and you can wall jump your way up here anyway. You have to be fairly quick, so you have to know what you're doing and know that you can do it. But it's there for those who want to try it out. And I think having stuff like that is really fun. And adds to the non-linearity and breakability of the hack, and it makes the player, once they do it, it makes them feel like they really accomplished something significant. Which they did. It's not a big sequence break, but it's still a sequence break. I wanted to also make sure that all of the items in the hack have at least some kind of hint towards them, and some of the hints are bigger than others. The reason that this is a hint is because I almost never tile with like 4 of these straight ceiling tiles right next to each other. Not everyone finds that suspicious, but I find it suspicious. Maybe it's just because I like being detailed and like not samey when it comes to my tiling, although I do a lot of copy pasting. Anyway, that's how you find that missile, and that is also what you could figure when you were looking for charge beam. Now we're on the other side of this bomb area, and we can connect all the way back to the beginning. But now that we have super missiles, we can explore the bottom. And the bottom will lead us to the boss, which has the next major upgrade, but there's a few things that we should go over. There's one little detour to take. This room brings back the slightly tougher pirates, but it also introduces another new enemy, which are the wrecked ship ghosts, and that's because the boss of this area is Phantoon. So just having them show up at all, the player will notice that. And obviously they've played Super Metroid before, so they notice that and they're like, oh, maybe Phantoon is coming soon. So they're not completely caught out of the blue when Phantoon shows up. So for this item, the bugs are the ones that are hinting that there's something here. You don't necessarily know it's a waterfall passage, but you know, oh, something's here. And it actually, instead of leading to an item, it leads to an optional mini-boss. This particular mini-boss is not required by any means to beat the game. However, it does give you a pretty decent reward, although it is a fair bit more... I won't necessarily say it's more challenging, but it's definitely more complicated in a much larger scope than the first mini-boss. You have to be a little bit gutsy because you have to fall on these platforms to get down to each of the rocks. If you really... So, because it's kind of hard to get out of the room, if the platform is constantly falling, I made them lock in place with some help from my assembly people so that they wouldn't fall, so that you can more easily fall out of the room. And you would think, oh wait, but you can clip through these things to get yourself stuck in the bottom, right? No. When can I... There we go. If you get stuck underneath one of these, if you roll under the top here, you just kind of get teleported to the top. I use slope elevators for that, and it's fun. Oh, I forgot to show with the first room, but this is probably a better example. I also used room states in the mini-boss rooms themselves to show that the rooms themselves kind of collapse in on themselves once you beat the mini-boss. And so you don't have to fight the mini-boss again if you go in. But the significant thing about that mini-boss is that drains the lava in this room, allowing you to access an energy tank that's right through this door. The lava isn't completely gone, it's at the bottom of this room, but yeah, it's still draining the lava. So that gets you energy tank number 4, which is almost all of the energy tanks in this area. There's one left. You don't really... There's backtracking in this hack, but you don't necessarily... Like, once you're completely done with the surface, you never really have to go back. So, there isn't as much of the whole crisscrossing across the entire map as there is in some other Metroid games like Prime 1 and Prime 2. But there's still some backtracking within each area. I like this, that you can, because if you run into lava on a slope, you still keep your momentum, so you can run quickly through that lava if you don't want to deal with that space pirate. Otherwise, we are about to get to Phantoon, the only second out of 2 bosses that return from vanilla. All of the others are the custom mini bosses and custom final boss, which I've shown off all of them on my channel, but if you're new to the channel, welcome. I do a lot of various Metroid stuff, but also music stuff. I'm not very focused when it comes to what I want to do with my channel. I just kind of do whatever I feel like. But I have fun. I'm not really in it for like the posterity or anything, because I have like 108 subscribers or something. I mean, I just hit 100, which is significant, but it's taken me almost 5 years to get there. So I don't expect to like have YouTube be my job. So it's like, I just do this because it's fun. And I mean, I do the ROM hacking because it's good experience, because I want to get into game design in the future. But I do the channel mostly for fun and to just put my work out there so it exists on the internet and people can see it and I can show it to people. I should talk a little bit about the Phantoon fight. I did some palette changing, but I also implemented about basically the same change that I put in all of my hacks with Phantoon, is that you deal, because he's an earlier game boss fight, he doesn't have as much health because you don't have as much ammo, and it's but he still has vanilla health. The way I compensated is he takes double damage from every upgrade. And what that does is it makes it so that you can't hit him as many times per cycle, because he bases when he disappears on how much damage he's taken in that particular cycle. So it feels like an AI change, but it isn't actually an AI change. It's just changing how Phantoon's AI reacts to the player's actions. And it's a really easy change, but it can throw people off and change how you perceive the fight, because it's done in a different way. And completing this fight gets us the Varia suit. You could see that the door on the other side of this room was locked, but it'll be unlocked now that we have the Varia suit. Not that you really have to go back here. It's not that important that it unlocks, but it's there just in case you really want to backtrack. And I guess if you're searching for 100%, having that easy means of getting from one side of the map to the other is quite helpful. But now that we're completely done with the surface, we can head into the core. And we have one other custom song. This is Core Approach, which is quite fitting because you are approaching the core. There's an item in here. This is meant to be a little hint, and I think it's fairly suspicious. And you can find yourself another energy tank. Pretty simple, but a lot of people, it's a pretty easy thing to overlook. I like using these fog palettes, and I also use it in this room because I didn't want the first room in the area to be heated, but I wanted it to give the perception of heat. So I used this palette and the smoke to convey heat, whereas all the other rooms are actually superheated. Now, the custom music, you can obviously hear there's custom music, but I have to talk over it because copyright issues. Even though this video getting copyright claim doesn't actually affect me all that much because I can't monetize my videos. Either way, this is Core from Undertale. It's one of my favorite songs in the game just because it's really action-packed. Now, with this area, I don't give very much information at all on the map. I just tell you a few significant things after the beginning. So I tell where there's one major upgrade, and I tell you where the final boss is, and that there's a save right before the final boss. The fact that the save is marked on the map is significant, so you know when you pass it, oh hey, there's a save here, I really need to save, because it's been a while since I've saved my game. And you don't want to lose your save data, so making sure players know where save rooms are is quite important. And I sometimes fail this wall jump. But the fact that the Nova crawled into here is what also in this gap hints you that there's something over here. And it's actually something quite significant. as you will see, we get the Spazer. What if I can actually shoot it? There we go. And this first Space Pirate, after getting Spazer, teaches you, oh, I have Spazer, so I can actually damage the black Space Pirates with uncharged shots. Or I can one-shot them with fully charged shots if I really want to. But you don't... The charge beam isn't always that significant. It's significant in some areas, but not always in others. Because there are enemies that do require the charge beam or missiles to defeat. These are not one of them anymore, because you have Spazer, but there will be more powerful enemies later on. Quick shout out to Drusef, the guy behind Super Metroid Redesign, because he's the one who allowed me to use some of these graphics, which are from Redesign. I mixed them together with the Torian graphics and the Moehr graphics, and I think it pulls off a pretty neat vibe. I think it fits together pretty well, and people have told me that they like the way it flows. So this is how all of that works. There's an area down here to the left. However, I'm going to hold off on that for a while and instead head to the right. You'll see why later. I could go there now, but there's a little bit more to that side that I want to kind of hold off on. Why did I hit that waiver with the super missile? It's not that important. What is important is that we are about to hit our second required mini-boss, and our first instance of the white space pirate, or the armored space pirate, because these space pirates are shown to be armored in cordite, which is what makes them much more powerful. They deal a lot more damage, and they are immune to a lot of your weaponry. As you can see, it dealt half an energy tank worth of damage, but if you shoot it with the super missile, then you'll take care of it pretty easily, but you don't have very many super missiles, so you have to use that strategy somewhat sparingly. The first of the missile blocks, or the first of the rocks, stones, whatever you want to call them, is a lot easier than the others, and it's also hard to notice at first, but you can see that there's also one underneath the lava. If you're gutsy, you can just kind of take the lava damage and shoot it right there. However, it would also be... You can also shoot it from here if you don't want to take any damage, like if you're doing a low percent run. Anyway, once you've defeated all three of those, you can come down here and... Oh, the lava's drained again, which is what lets you get down here. Because I marked doors on the map, which I think every hack should do, having areas like this where you want to cut off where the map shows, but have there still be a door, can be a little bit tricky. So I use stuff like that as an excuse to stop showing the map, because there's not technically a door there. No, it's something you have to find. Even if it's something that's really easy to find, having something that isn't explicitly a door gives you an excuse to not show the door in the map, so you can have the thing show up. So you can have these rooms not show up on the map, so you're exploring them completely blind when you're going in the first time. This is the final extension of the remote gate puzzle, this time with super missile gates. Because you may not see any gates here, but if you fall down here, you'll find there are 2 super missile gates. So you just have to hit the other switch, or if you really want to, you can green gate glitch. I just realized this is a required instance of wall jumping, and the rest of the hack, I don't know how much I actually require wall jumping. I just noticed that, and I've been beta testing this thing since like October. I'm recording this in December, right after Christmas, because I'm actually off work today. So this gives me a pretty decent chunk of time that I can spend to record and edit this video, because I want to release this video at the same time as I release the hack. I've been allowed to release the hack since Oatsngoats played the hack. However, I wanted to do a little bit more polished stuff. Now, I like this room. This is meant to be the refinery. So this is like a little machine that's processing the cordite. And you'll see that I do some room state shenanigans later on. But also, this is the introduction of the purple Moehr tile set, which isn't like gameplay significant wise, but I just think it looks cool. This was, I think the purple was actually my brother's idea. He's like, hey, maybe you should have like purple. I'm probably oversimplifying, but I'm pretty sure it was my brother's idea, and he really liked having the purple. This is also the first instance of having Cordite in a non-mini-boss room, but this gives me a good excuse to change room states, because even though you can leave this room and the mini-boss theme isn't playing, you're still altering the planet when you break out like these columns of Cordite, and I always have a room shake to signify that something significant has happened. So you walk in here and you get the screw attack. However, the rest of the room will be changing, or the rest of the area will be changing afterwards. And you see suddenly, oh no, the lava's gone and there's white pirates. Oh, I can just screw attack them. Nope. The Cordite is so powerful that the screw attack just phases right through them. You can still kill them with super missiles though, but super missiles are very sparse in this hack. The other option you have for taking them down is charge beam. And I think that takes up 4 shots. Yeah, 4 shots. But super missiles are just way faster. Convenient, because right here is another suspicious spot where you can go and find yourself some more super missiles, actually. There will be more changes down in the bottom of the room too, which is meant to silently, or not through like gameplay and environmental storytelling, that's what the term is. Do some environmental storytelling to show you, oh hey, the Cordite stones are gone, but all these pirates are armored. Okay, so those stones are the Cordite that they're using as their armor. And then, oh, you make those connections. And then, like, oh, then the players start to feel smart because they're actually figuring out how the hack story is supposed to work. And I don't have to say a single line of dialogue after the intro to convey any of this story. There's another really minor detail that most people would overlook, but has proved to be fairly significant when it comes to guiding players in the right progression through this hack. And it was the fact that when I reached the branching path, when I turned right after the mini-boss in this room, that door was red, whereas the other one was blue. And the reason that's significant is because the red door entices the player to go this way, because they're like, oh, it's a red door. There's something important back there. So that's the way I guide players into this area so that they get screw attack before going through the rest of the area. And that's exactly what happened when Oatsngoats played my hack, actually, is he went down this way. I was really stressed on the day that he played my hack, but a lot of these little details kind of fell into place, and he was able to see almost everything in the hack without me having to guide him as to where to go. You can see even the key hunters are getting Cordite armor, but they're still vulnerable to super missiles. I have some of the room state changes are bigger than others. Like this room state doesn't change again. However, I'm finally going to fill in on what this other area that I chose not to go to was, because it is significant. To say the least, it is significant. Here we have another instance. I didn't point this out earlier, but Cordite in the natural like rock form, glowing. And you saw that also near the refinery, the Cordite rock went away when the room state changed, and all the rocks were all the pirates were suddenly armored. So you think this is just kind of a missile tank sitting here in a Metroid 1 looking room, but then you notice, wait a minute, in all those rooms, you could usually go behind the statue, and this looks suspicious. So then, you check here. And the music is gone. And there's water? Very interesting. It looks like there's nothing in this room. But no other room in this hack has been completely useless. There's always some reason that it exists, and this room stands out so much that you're like, there has to be something here. So you search around, and I use this cue a lot, but a lot of people don't seem to catch onto it, is that this tile that the stalactite is under almost always has a stalactite under it. However, this tile doesn't. And I only do that when there's something suspicious about it. And you can also see there's, if you have your screen brightness on enough, there's a little bit of light blue leading over here. Because you can mid-air morph, and this takes you to The Secret Grove. I love how this turned out. The Secret Grove. It also was convenient that Secret Grove took up exactly as much space as Wrecked Ship, so I was able to make it fit on the pause map screen. Which, a lot of things worked out quite well. This tile set was created by PhazonWebb. PhazonWebb I worked with on a collaboration contest hack like a year or two ago, maybe like a year and a half ago. But that hack really kind of fell apart. I don't really want it. I won't really talk more about it because he'll talk more about it in this commentary segment once we finish up this area. But right now I just want to bask in the lushness of these tiles because they're just so good. And then the music for this area is Pink Shell from Mother 3. Mother 3 is one of my favorite games, and Pink Shell is one of my favorite songs in that game. But it was actually convenient that when I went in to make the custom music for this hack, I didn't have to transcribe Mother 3 myself, Pink Shell, because I had already done it. I had a project in 11th grade where we were supposed to pick our own piece of art to analyze. I forget exactly what we were supposed to analyze, but I think just how parts of its structure were significant to it. So I'm like, ooh, I'm going to be all smart-like and like talk music theory about it. So I transcribed this song into Noteflight and learned a decent amount about it, and it sounded okay. But I didn't do very good analysis on it, and I got a 40 on the assignment, which I'm still a little bit annoyed with, but it is the way it is. I mean, I still did fine in the class. Fine enough, at least. But because I had already made that arrangement, I already had a MIDI. I could just export that song to a MIDI. So I didn't have to re-listen to the song to do any transcription of it. I just already had it on hand, and that worked out super well because this track fits really well with this area. And I still had to do like arrangement for the Super Metroid sound font, where I had to pick like what Super Metroid instruments go where, and making it all fit into the right format. But when it came to actually like transcribing the notes, I had already done that, which was really convenient, and it fits so well that I hope y'all think so too. You'll notice if you're really paying attention to all of my hacks that a couple of these rooms are actually I stole from myself. So this room and the room directly beneath it and the room we're about to enter draw very heavy inspiration from rooms in Pit of 100 Trials. And that's because I was like, you know, I'm using a completely different tile set. I think I can get away with copying my own rooms. Plus the deadline is kind of coming up soon, so I think it's fine. So, yes, laziness did kind of inform some of the decisions I made, but I don't think it's that big of a deal that I copied myself. Because it's like, yeah, plagiarism is bad, but it's like most of the time people don't really care about self-plagiarism because you can think of it more of as an homage to my own previous works. Or you could also think of it as just me being lazy. I mean, either one technically works, but I guess that depends on how you want to think about me. Similar to the room in Pit of 100 Trials, there is a secret here that most people don't find. I guess because it's not that well hinted, honestly. But it's one of the few areas in this hack where you go completely underwater. And you also have to do a teensy bit of underwater wall jumping to get up here. It's not that difficult, but I kept the version of this alcove from hard mode and not normal mode of Pit of 100 Trials. So you had to wall jump a little bit, and there's these spikes down here. It's not that big of a difference between this room and hard mode and normal mode. However, what is significant about this area is that here is when you get the ice beam, and you'd be thinking, why would you get the ice beam in such an out-of-the-way area? And the answer to that is that ice beam is 100% optional, and you don't use it for progression at all. It's straight up a damage upgrade. Most enemies don't even freeze when you hit them with the ice beam. It's just kind of tears through them really easily. So if you've managed to find the secret grove and you go all the way out of your way to get to the ice beam, getting through some fairly challenging rooms with some tanky enemies if you're not all that prepared for it, then you get rewarded with a huge boost to your damage. Like, these enemies are pretty tanky, and I'm destroying them in 2 shots. However, we're not quite done with this area. This was just one of the 2 major branching paths here. The other one's a little bit harder to get to, but that's just because there's one thing that you'll see. This big room that I'm going back into is one of my favorite rooms that I've ever put in one of my hacks. I didn't design the entire thing, I designed it with PhazonWebb because it was originally going to be a room in our collaboration hack. I'll just take this falling opportunity to show off more of it. The backgrounds I did myself during this hack, but the foreground and what you actually interact with, just look at it. It's like, oh, it's so good. I love the way that PhazonWebb was able to get the sand tiles to like blend with each other, and that they can interact with the stone tiles too, and it just fits so well. This one little area though is what always trips me up when I always go too far on that. Luckily, the penalty for failure is not particularly large, so you just have to have good timing, which I don't always have good timing. But the reward is well worth it. Ah! Once again, I don't have the best timing. It's kind of a precise bomb jump, but it's not like difficult. Ah! Sorry, there's been so much of you watching me fail during this whole process. There we go. And then you just fall here. If you don't have screw attack, that Rio can kind of knock you down, but there's a decent chance you'll have screw attack by the time you get here. This gets you to the one technological part of the secret grove, and you're like, what? Technological? But why are all the doors locked? And the reason for that will be explained shortly. However, over here, there's another little area that I copied from Pit of 100 Trials. This small little grotto that has a reserve tank instead of a missile tank. This was in Redburn Star in Pit of 100 Trials. It's fairly heavily edited now, but it's a reserve tank, and it actually comes completely filled. You have all of the energy in it already when you get it, which is a minor detail, but it makes a big difference. So you're like, well, these doors are locked, how do I get in? Wait, why is there no tile there? So you either bomb it or you screw attack it, and you can get into the rocket itself. Spoilers, it's a rocket, and it's like, it's the Edicoons and the Takora, and the switch. Emergency escape rocket activated, ready to launch in case of planetary catastrophe. Because I'm like, well, your mission is to blow up the planet, but there's all this life in the secret grove, so well, you'd feel kind of bad if you blew up the planet and just left all of these things to die. So I'm like, oh, let's have a rocket that you activate, and it has all these creatures on it that you can, and you activate it and you save the animals. So that's where this whole saving the animals thing came in. But then suddenly, ooh, but why is the door locked? Power Rush. Gain damage boost when in danger. This is a direct homage to Paper Mario. But then, the statue explodes and reduces you to exactly 30 HP, which is the threshold required to activate Power Rush. There's a little HUD icon that that turns green when you have Power Rush, when you have low enough health to activate Power Rush. That was designed by Moehr. I think it was actually his idea to do that. However, when I get above 30 HP, I lose the Power Rush ability, but if I fall down below it, I get back up to 30 HP. I've made a video showing off Power Rush before. However, it's not exactly the same as the way it's implemented in this hack. So in this hack, when you shoot your beams, they're automatically charged instead of what it is in the original video where all of your damage is just doubled. All the damage for your bombs and your missiles and all that, that's still doubled. However, the rest of it isn't. So now I would like to leave it to PhazonWebb, who is going to discuss a little bit about the Secret Grove tile set itself. Take it away.
I'm PhazonWebb, and I'm the creator of the lush Secret Grove tile set featured in Metroid Nerd number 9001's Hotlands hack for Oatsngoats Super Metroid ROM hack competition. The tile set originates from the abandonment of a few contest hacks over the years that never got finished, and as a result, leaving some assets from those projects completely unused. On September 5th, 2020, the collaboration contest had begun pursuit of entrants to participate in a two-man team to go up against other teams to win Best Collaboration Hack. I thought that this may be my chance to work on a project with someone else other than myself for a change. In the upcoming months, I got partnered up with Metroid Nerd number 9001 and the announcement of the theme of the contest, Opposites. We discussed what opposites for our hack was going to be, and we thought of the simple light versus dark theme, something similar to Metroid Prime 2 Echoes. During development of our hack, I remembered the leftover assets from my abandoned contest hacks and thought these will look good for our project, along with some newly drawn tiles, and thus the first iteration of the Secret Grove tile set was made. Months later, nearing the deadline, we lost focus of our original plan for our project and had to change it drastically to a small boss rush hack. In the end, we were late with submissions and our hack was disqualified from the contest. Fast forward to the third quarter of 2021 when Metroid Nerd requested to use the tile set for his Hotlands hack, and I replied, "Do whatever you want with it." I think he has done a fine job working with it, and I'm proud to see that Hotlands won community vote.
Thank you, PhazonWebb. And now we are back in the core, ready to finish our mission. You saw when I was coming back through here that the ice beam is actually so powerful that it can damage armored enemies. So the armored space pirates and the armored key hunters are both vulnerable to the ice beam. However, otherwise, the ice beam is just super powerful and can defeat enemies really quickly. So this room is significant because it's actually where I got the idea to do a lot of minor, but at least to me, it's really significant edits to the way the Moehr tile set looks. Now, the original Moehr doesn't have very good slopage because it's really kind of jagged and blocky, even though there's still slopes. So what I did was I made like inner corner tiles myself. I didn't draw them, but I took them from existing tiles and put them in different formations. And I think it looks a lot smoother. So this is one of my favorite rooms that shows this off. And when I was building the room, was where I got the idea to make all those changes. They're kind of the whole foreground things that you walk through. They're just in front of Samus, and I like the way they look. And I think the entire hack is better because I made that room, this room, and had them blocking, not blocking, what am I talking about? Had got the idea, it's like, oh, I should probably make those look better because it looks kind of bad, really. So this area is suspicious because there's a slope and then there's two of the same type of stalactite right aside from it. Not super suspicious, but at least I think it's suspicious, which maybe isn't always the best way to go about things. And then up here, because there's an item dot, you know there's something in here. So then you kind of search around and you're like, oh, there's a missile tank up here. Woo! A lot of the more hidden items aren't hinted as easily, but luckily you don't really need to find them to beat the game. Because if you get 100%, this hack is kind of easy. But you're not going to find everything on your first try unless you like watch my videos or like look at the map. But that's kind of cheating. Like if you're going in blind, you're not going to find everything. Also, the return of purple Moehr. So you're not going to have everything. So the hack will be harder, but it's not unnecessarily difficult. I like to think I did pretty well on the difficulty balancing. Here we have some instances of zebatites, but I kind of made it so that they're like, oh, that's kind of molten colloidite they're keeping in tubes. And I had to edit the graphics on them a little bit to get the glows to look right, but I think it turned out pretty well. And that leads us to this secret area, with another armored space pirate that you can take out. It still takes a lot of shots because they have a lot of health, but you can damage them with the ice beam. Another suspicious wall later. And here we have another secret room of lag. Lots of lag. And a super missile hidden in the ceiling, but in a stalactite that's solid looking, but it's like, I don't really use those that often. So it's like, that's kind of suspicious. So you're going to shoot it. And you have to kill all the enemies to leave just because. There's nothing really too significant to that. And you kind of have to take damage here. I mean, you can avoid it, but I probably could have designed this room a little bit better, but it wasn't that important to me. And then you just fall through a combo block here, and you can leave. So those white waivers, I can damage them easily because I have the ice beam, but even though they're really small, they're still immune to the screw attack. So if you don't have the ice beam, it becomes more of a game of dodging than a game of actually fighting the enemies when you deal with them. I'll show them in the next room because they're also in the next room. Whereas when you have the ice beam, you can defeat them the same way you would regular waivers. But these, you can't screw attack. You can screw attack the rippers, but not the waivers. So if you have the ice beam, you have a significant advantage against them because they're armored in colloidite. But that doesn't really matter all that much because you have the ice beam. Here's a refill station. This is the last refill station in the hack, which is still a fair ways away from the final boss because I didn't want it to be too easy to be full for the last few things in the hack. But I still wanted but I was still informed by Cowie JDP, who is also has consistently been one of my best beta testers, even from Super Metroid Recovery, my first ROM hack. They were very helpful in beta testing, and so they suggested that I have a refill station around there. And so I did. Here we have another pretty well hidden missile, but it's just a missile tank, so it's nothing too significant if you can't find it. I try to not make it. I'm not hiding any 100% required major upgrades behind like a random wall that you have to bomb. I'm not like that because that's not good design. But it's like having pretty well hidden secrets it's more acceptable to do that. And now it's in the final stretch. We're right next to the final boss, and this is where having that save station on the map comes in handy. Because you know this is a save station, so you really should save here. Because this is the first save you've had since either you left the Secret Grove, or if you went back to the beginning of the core. There's a pretty long stretch where there's no save, so you really want to use this save station. But the door to the final boss is locked. And this actually came from me thinking, wait a minute, why would the space pirates just let you into the core if your goal is to blow it up? So I'm like, oh, so the pirates have like a little base down here that's pretty well guarded. And so you have to get through it. And you can then unlock the door through there. This room is also lifted from Pit of 100 Trials. Hard mode specifically because there's this platform in the middle that has lava or acid hitting it. Every once in a while, you just barely get your toes dipped in it. It's not a significant amount of damage unless you're doing low percent. But that allows you to get in here for the final mini boss, which is an absolute joke if you have 100%, because you just have so much ammo that you can just wail on it. But this is meant to be the central computer, and when you blow it up, it kind of overrides all the systems, and that's what lets you get into the final boss. The ninja pirates come back, but you can just run past them because you don't need to unlock the other door. And now, this door is unlocked, allowing you to enter the final stretch ooh, the door is locked, which also kind of came out of laziness because this room also has stones in them, or rocks. And there's a screen shake afterwards, but I didn't want to implement another room stay for this room because it's right before the final boss. So I'm like, I'm just going to have the door locked so it's like a point of no return. And I think it serves well to kind of build the tension, especially since the last rock is stuck in the wall. So you're really breaking your way into the core of the planet for the final boss. This is the final boss of Super Metroid Hotlands, with the final boss theme also composed by Just Another Paper Toad. This was not present in the contest the version of the hack that Oatsngoats played because I was really busy with school. So Just Another Paper Toad told me, don't worry about implementing this into the hack because I know you're really busy. So, but I promised him I'd get it implemented before I released it fully, so here it is. And I think it turned out really well. A lot of my beta testers have liked it too. But you see, ooh, power bombs. So that kind of tells you what's going on here is you're going to use a power bomb to blow up the entire planet. Not quite in the same way that Super Metroid Final Stand did, where you blow up the planet with Samus on it and Samus dies at the end. You'll see what happens. So you destroy the last rock and suddenly a bunch of new rocks show up. But they're different than the previous ones. So I'm gonna... this room gets really laggy because there's just so many of them. But you'll see that these are not the same as the rocks we've been destroying because they're actually completely invulnerable to all of your regular attacks. This room is really laggy, but what'll happen is when I lay a power bomb, it'll blow up all of them and start the escape. And I think this is a good opportunity to get our final commentary segment from Moehr, who helped me out with a lot of the assembly stuff, and he'll go over some of the details of how all of that worked. Take it away.
Hey, this is Moehr. I made a few of the patches used in Hotlands for Metroid Nerd 9001 for the Oats ROM Hack Contest. I did not enter the contest as part of a specific team because I wanted to be on hand to assist any of the contestants ad hoc. I enjoy hacking and the opportunity to help people make new patches is always fun. For Hotlands, I provided a few patches to help with the cinematic events. One patch enabled the tracking of objective completion for the mini-bosses, modifying the room clear check process and tracking the defeat of the mini-boss. Another similar patch handled the final battle in the core area, moving off-screen stones onto the screen and blowing up a bunch of tiles once they appeared and were defeated. The final cinematic patch I provided was a simple event setter plus message box for the grotto to set the animal saved event if Samus had found them before she entered the core. Normally this event is set during the escape, but here we wanted it to happen during the main game. The last two patches I provided were one that loads custom music to the ROM and modifies the title screen to accommodate custom music, and a patch related to Metroid Nerd's Power Rush item that adds HUD icon art, as well as HUD handling once Samus has obtained Power Rush and whenever Power Rush is activated, since it isn't a selectable HUD item. However, what I enjoyed most were the times when Metroid Nerd wanted some assistance with code, and he would send me handwritten pseudocode for what needed to happen. Often he was explicit enough that I could easily write whatever it was he was looking for based on his specifications. Watching Hotlands develop and being involved in the process was a ton of fun. I recommend playing Hotlands if you haven't, and also recommend working on hacks as part of a team if you get the chance.
Thank you, Moehr. As you can see, the planet is exploding. A few of those rooms in the escape, once again, lifted from Pit of 100 Trials, but once again, it's kind of hard to tell because they're using different sets of tiles, so they don't look identical. Other than that, it's a pretty standard escape. 3 minutes, which is vanilla, which is I think is a fair amount of time because it takes me usually 2 minutes of in-game time to get out. So you have a fair amount of leeway, but it's not a joke. You can still die in the escape, especially if you don't have screw attack. But otherwise, that's the hack. and finished just with just over a minute remaining. So, yeah, here it is. There was a lot of detailed palette work with like a lot of different palettes in a lot of different places that I had to look to make sure that the planet still kept the same gray color even while it was exploding. So, but it was definitely worth it in the end to be able to keep that consistency and make it feel different throughout the entire hack, that I'm not just leaving certain parts of the hack out just because they're difficult. And there you can see we save the animals. The operation was completed successfully. Clear time, 52 minutes. And in keeping in that same vein, I even have custom credits. I want to extend another special thanks to all the people who helped me out with this hack, as the credits are saying. I've done hacking on my own a lot, but it's really, really helpful to work together. As Moehr was saying in his commentary, that it's honestly just helps a lot to work with a team because you have other people to bounce ideas off of. You don't have to, because game design is such a complex field with so many different aspects, that having a team is really good to help you. So you have people who specialize in stuff. So you have some people who are good with graphics, some people who are good with level design, some people who are good with music, etc., etc., etc. And you can be good in multiple of those things, but it's really hard to be good at everything. So it's like, I can't do graphics, so I had like PhazonWebb and Just Another Paper Toad and Drusev do it for me. I'm okay with assembly, but I'm not the best at it, so I had Moehr and Cowie help me out with it, etc. Samus successfully beat back the space pirate threat on Vulcan, but their presence looms throughout the galaxy. After receiving her payment, Samus set out into the stars. Little did she know that the pirates' quest for Cordite would soon give her another call to action. And that is meant as foreshadowing for my next hack, and probably my final Super Metroid hack, which will be Super Metroid Quarry, which in my Power Rush video I mistakenly said I want to have out in the summer of 2025. I intend to have it out in the summer of 2024, which will be right after I graduate from college, actually. I haven't actually started building the hack, so once I get a better idea of like the scope of it and how long it actually seems like it's going to take, the timeline is it's very likely that the timeline will change on it. But this is just the preliminary idea. I'm giving myself a couple years to put it together, and it'll be a full-size with a full-size hack with a completely new map, new graphics, new music, all that jazz, the whole enchilada. And yeah, this has been Super Metroid Hotlands, my entry into the Oatsngoats Hacking Contest. I won 3rd place. You should definitely check out the other 2 hacks that won, which are Harvest, which won 2nd place, and Cryogenesis, which won 1st place. And then Super Metroid Biohazard got 4th place, but it was still a really good hack, and I think you should definitely check out those other 3 hacks. But thank you for watching. This has been Metroid Nerd number 9001, and I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. If you liked the video, give it a like. If you disliked it, give it a dislike, and let me know what you think in the comments. See you then.